if you spent half your year in deep snow in Canada or Finland or whatever, yeah, sure. It will be really good at that stuff. But if you live in the New York tri-state area and you want to drive a 911 year round and it snows 4 or 5 times a year and you're only driving on a truly snow-covered road for that one day until they plow it, and then it's just cold and wet, just get the regular one and put snow tires on it. Hey, folks, welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. We have a new sponsor, and it's NASCAR, the whole series. How about that? And guess what's coming up? I am really excited for this because we went last year, and it was awesome, to the Clash at the Coliseum. That's right. NASCAR built a track inside the LA Coliseum. They put on a crazy show. The race was really fun. It was so fun to watch in person. You could see the whole thing, all the action from the stands. Plus, they had a halftime because there's no pit entrance, so they had to have a halftime for the race to change all the tires on the cars, right? Because there was no way for the cars to get to a pit during the race because it was, did I say, inside of a football stadium. And so there was like a concert at halftime. It was a really interesting event, and they're bringing it back this year. It was super successful. February 5th, they're kicking off NASCAR's 75th anniversary season. I can't wait to see it again. They got us passes, and guess what? Cypress Hill is performing. Last year was Pitbull and Ice Cube, which is cool. I like Pitbull, I like Ice Cube, but I love Cypress Hill. And Cypress Hill is performing this year. It is going to be awesome. They have a pre-race concert, and then the stars of the NASCAR Cup Series will battle it out inside the Coliseum. And then at halftime, the actual pause for a Wiz Khalifa concert. So you got Cypress Hill opening for NASCAR and then Wiz Khalifa at halftime. It's going to be awesome. It's unlike anything NASCAR's ever done. It's so cool to see those beautiful next-gen cars ripping up laps inside of a legendary venue like the Coliseum. And it's really cool just to even see the track. So tickets are still available at NASCARclash.com. Or if you can't make it to the race, be sure to tune it in to the television program, the television broadcast, the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum on Sunday, February 5th, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern on Fox. I will be there with Zach and some other friends. If you're going in LA, make sure to say hi. Clash at the Coliseum, February 5th, 2023. Get your tickets at NASCARclash.com. We're also brought to you in part today by Factor. Love the Factor. We've done video ads for them. You've seen me eating their food. They send us food here at the shop every month, and Factor is great. If you're too busy to cook or you're too stressed to find healthy options, Factor is perfect. You skip the trips to the grocery store, skip the chopping, the prep, and the cleanup. Factor's got fresh, never frozen meals. They're ready in just 2 minutes in the microwave. All you got to do is heat it and enjoy it. No matter your lifestyle, they've got it for you. Are you keto, calorie smart? You vegan, you want vegetarian, you want protein plus. They're prepared by chefs, approved by dietitians, and every meal has all the ingredients you need to feel satisfied all day long. Every week, they've got 34 chef-prepared, dietitian-approved options, so there's always something new to try. And you can round out your meal and replenish your snack supply with an assortment of 36 sweets, smoothies, juices, and more satisfying add-ons. If you want to cut back on the takeout, just grab Factor instead. It's cheaper than takeout. Meals are ready faster than takeout in just 2 minutes. So if you get Factor, you can enjoy clean eating without the hassle. Just enjoy your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed stuff delivered directly to your door. It's ready in just 2 minutes, no prep and no mess. So head to factormeals.com/tire50 and use code TIRE50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code TIRE50 at factormeals.com/tire50. You got to use that TIRE50 code twice. factormeals.com/tire50 and then code TIRE50. Get you 50% off your first box. Of course, the Patreon is in full effect. We love the Patreon, patreon.com/The Smoking Tire Podcast. You want to support the show directly? Do you want to not listen to me read these ads? Do you want to engage with the live stream? Do you want to ask questions of our guests? Do you want an extra podcast every month? And now, do you want an ad-free video experience for our car review videos? All available at patreon.com/The Smoking Tire Podcast. A tier for everybody. You can get a year up front, get a little discount there. You can go month to month. There's plans starting at just $3 a month, all the way up to $15 a month for the maxed out everything at once all the time plan. Patreon.com/The Smoking Tire Podcast. Right.
That's where we are.
That's where we are. Hey, folks. Welcome to a special episode of the Smoking Tire Podcast. We are on location today, out of the studio. It's a nice day to be out of the studio, and we are at the LA Memorial Coliseum, where NASCAR's built a racetrack. There is a track down there, and it took them a month to build, and this coming Sunday, February 5th, there will be a race in downtown LA inside of this stadium, the Busch Clash at the Coliseum. That's Busch beer, not like a weird porn name, the Busch Clash. It's going to be awesome. Zach and I went to this race last year, and it was real cool.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's amazing to see what they have turned this into.
Yeah.
This is where USC plays football, and then 6 weeks later, it's a racetrack with like hardened tarmac and everything. That's pretty wild engineering.
Like race car level tarmac. It's not even like road tarmac.
Yeah, very good point.
It's a special kind of rubber that you need to drive on with slicks so it doesn't like come up. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting. I posted on Instagram about this race like a couple days ago, and there's two kinds of like people. People that are, kind of curious about it and think it's, some nice, like, outside the box thinking. And then hardcore NASCAR people that hate it.
Why do they hate it? Because the speed?
They just think they think because it's such a small track with relatively low speeds for NASCAR that it's just not that good of a race. And I can actually see where that perspective comes from. If you are watching on TV, because on TV it probably just looks slow and safe.
Yeah, I mean,
but in person it's different.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's just like when you're here in person, you can watch. It's so interesting because you can watch, a car catch up to the car in front of it by 2 feet a lap.
Yeah.
You can actually watch someone rake someone in, or open up a gap, and that gap can be feet per lap, and you can actually see it.
Well, and what's cool here is you can see the whole race. Like you can see every corner without having to turn your head. So if you're at the Daytona 500 or something, one, they're all usually grouped together. But if they weren't, you have to like choose which side of the track you're looking at, and they're so far away you can't see those little moves.
Yeah.
So here you can see when someone's getting a little too much oversteer on exit, and how the car ahead of them is pulling away.
Right.
In really small amounts, or vice versa, like you said. So you can kind of see the whole situation that's happening, which is more exciting, I think, than people are giving it credit for, especially if you watch the broadcast. You don't get that shot as often.
Mm-hmm.
They use a lot of the tight shots of the cars just driving by the wall, and you miss out on a lot of like the chess that's being played.
Yeah, and like the fact that it's like right in the middle of the city means a whole different audience will come to check it out. Mm-hmm. And I realize why the hardcore NASCAR people might not be into that, but if a sport is going to grow, you need to get new people to see it in person. Mm-hmm. And, I like racing, but like, I don't even want to drive out to Fontana to watch a race out there. Like most racetracks, especially super speedways, are like in the middle of nowhere. And so the idea that you could come to right here and just like take an Uber here from your house, is so convenient. And it gets a whole audience of people that wouldn't normally go to a NASCAR race. Plus, you got Cypress Hill performing the opening before the race, which, hell yeah, fucking Cypress Hill. About that. I saw Cypress Hill when I was 16.
Oh, my God.
When I saw Cypress Hill in New York City when I was 16, it coincided. It was my first hip-hop concert. Coincided with another big first in Matt Farah's life, which was the first time I'd ever tried delivery service weed.
I knew that was going to be involved somehow.
It was.
Cypress Hill.
It wasn't just like, because I had smoked weed before that, but the delivery, when we discovered the delivery services, and this was before, the movie Half Baked came out, like that, they got that from the real
life,
from real life.
Yeah.
And the real delivery, they would come in the jars, and it was like, normally the weed would come in the bag, and it would, even if it was good, it would be kind of like mushed up, because that's what happens in a bag versus a jar where it looks like pristine and like sparkly. And we brought a lot of delivery service weed to the Cypress Hill concert. And it was also the first time I'd ever seen someone having sex, not just in public, but in a standing room concert. It was right next to us.
That's impressive on a number of levels.
It was. I mean, I was extremely impressed.
They do not get shy. They're probably great public speakers. They're like, yeah, I can handle anything.
It wasn't one of the members of Cypress Hill, but it was.
No. They're busy.
Very excited concert goer.
That might be different than this show.
Someone will be fucking in the stadium. Someone. Just the math. The math alone says that. Right?
I don't know.
Probably.
We'll have to find out.
If you were a betting man,
we should call
this place holds like 85,000 people. You put 85,000 people in one place for 4 hours, somebody's fucking. Right? The math just says that.
Well, we'll have to check with Vegas and see what the odds are.
Bro.
If there's betting allowed, they'll have it.
There's betting on this race, right? There's betting on all NASCAR races, right? In Vegas, in the sports book, you can bet on races.
Probably.
Yeah.
If you can bet on horses, you should be able to bet on
cars.
Right,
you bet on cars, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that. But it's really, really cool to see this track built. It looks. I think they finished it like today. Mm-hmm. Like I saw a forklift moving a safety barrier like 5 minutes ago, and it's now gone. So I think it's done.
There's pictures on the LA Times from last year when they built it, and like it is a very impressive, difficult construction project. Like,
sure.
There's a lot of heavy equipment going in. I mean, it's making a road in the middle of grass.
Well, they sent us the fact sheet, right? Do you have it handy?
Yeah.
Here, I have it handy. Here we go. So 130,000 square feet of Viscian. What does that say? 100 square feet of field protection. So it's what they put down on the field, because there's apparently field under that.
That's crazy.
They don't take the grass out. So there's field under it, 130,000 square feet, 3,840 feet of temporary track wall, 9,200 cubic yards of fill and aggregate base material. That's basically gravel, right? 6,900 cubic yards of paving, 1,400 feet of track catch fencing, 1,400 feet of safer barrier. They have to modify the tunnel so that cars can get through it. Normally, football players run through that.
Well, they pave the tunnel.
They pave it. Yeah, it just says modification to tunnel. So they do something there.
Stage 2 tunnel.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a lot of work. And then the race is over, and then they just jackhammer the shit out.
That's amazing. I mean, seriously, whoever had this idea, like, this seems like a fever dream. They're like,
yeah.
And I understand the motivation of, like, we need to pull in a new market, but let's turn a football stadium into a track temporarily.
Yeah.
And then we'll rip it out. And then the next year, 11 months later,
I think it's a loss leader. It's got to be. There's no way they can earn a profit on that.
Well, but I'm
building
probably
a
hoping
track that has to last a day.
I remember last year when we went, the response we had in the comments on Instagram, the number of people that went to this that had never watched a NASCAR race, it was some huge percentage of like 40 or 50%.
Yeah, I think it was like 40.
Yeah, so the participants were like, oh, here's a new thing, let's check it out. And that's what they're hoping for. And then those people will watch the races the rest of the season, become new fans, their kids become new fans, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool.
Playing the long game. It is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's far cooler to watch in person than I think people on the internet are giving it credit for.
Everyone I know who came in person said it was great. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people who watched it on TV were less impressed.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, as we know, the camera slows things down. You know, when we have to do drive-by shots for a video, I have to go like a crazy speed to make it look kind of fast.
Yeah.
you know, and so when you have a NASCAR that you're used to seeing, you know, 180 to 200 miles an hour on a super speedway, and it's going, you know, 80 or 85 here, it's not going to look fast on camera.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, if you can just imagine accelerating to 80, up to 85 and down to 35 or 40 over and over inside of a stadium in a car, like, it's pretty impressive.
I heard they put mufflers on the cars this year.
Oh, really?
Because last year we were all wearing earplugs.
Yeah.
And it was loud.
It was really loud.
like a cool experience, but it was really loud.
Yeah.
So I think Mufflers is a good idea.
I like that they came to that realization. Like, you know, guys, this is loud.
Like, but some of that is the selling
with
point.
that?
Like monster truck rallies.
Yeah.
It's indoors. Those are some of the loudest vehicles I've ever been around.
Sure.
So but if they don't hand out ear protection to everyone, that's maybe where the problem came into play. Because we got it from like Hendrix. I was like, oh, thank God there's earplugs in here.
Yeah, we got the over-ear ones.
Yeah, if you don't have those, like, it's a little noisy. So they got mufflers, and it's not like they're going to be quiet. They still have 850,000 horsepower.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to be loud.
Yeah. But it's going to be very, very cool. I can't wait to go to the race on Sunday. They got qualifying Saturday, and there's all this like other stuff going on around the track. There's like the paddock and the experience centers and so much beer. When we drove in today, there was a lot of beer.
You could have built another tower out of it.
Yeah,
and
right.
then plus, some people were saying they went last year, and you can go to like the USC, the Science Museum where the space shuttle is over. Is like right
it's
over
in
there.
like Exposition Park, like it's that.
I mean, yeah,
it's where that pyramid is.
You can walk over there and see the spaceships and stuff. So
yeah,
it's
and apparently
it's a nice
George
day for the
Lucas
family.
is building a giant Millennium Falcon over there, which
For the
looks
film school.
Well, it looks like a weird Hobbit house right now, but it's I guess. I don't know. I should have known more about it before I started talking about it, but apparently that's going to be a Millennium Falcon. So,
I think he
cool.
went to USC's film school.
Probably.
So,
Sure.
Yeah. Now he's like, well, I have $5 billion. So what am I going to do with
I'm
it?
chilling, so
Pretty cool.
Give back. Thank you all for saying such nice things about our 9/11 Dakar video. We spent a lot of time on that. I mean, not only, as I said with Doug, you know, I spent a lot of time flying to the other side of the world for that. And then Zach spent a lot of time in the editing machine for that. How many hours would you say you edited that for? 12?
Probably 16 to 20.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of footage to sift through first. That's like a day.
Yeah, so it's like, it's tough, man, because it's, you know, the math is just impossible on that. Like, it's so funny because, like, that's what, like, we are clearly capable of making a television style and quality film, and it would take so little money in the scope of TV to actually do that every time. But it's so much more than YouTube pays.
Right. Yeah.
Unless it literally, so, you know, please share it if you like. I appreciate a kind email if you saw the film and you liked it, or appreciate a comment on the social media or a comment on the YouTubes, but sharing it is better, because that's, you know, how people are gonna find it and watch it. And in order to justify something like that in the future, it literally has to get 10 to 20 the number of views, that not like 2 or 3, like 10 times the number of views that a regular video gets. And so it was very fun to make. The writing process and the footage gathering process and the editing process. It's nice to be creative, and people pointed out some comparisons to Anthony Bourdain, which is very, very much appreciated, because he is a television legend and big inspiration for us, I think. But you know, you can't survive making videos that take a long time and lose money. That was the lesson of 2009 to 2014.
Yeah.
And a bunch of people were like, "I love this new format." It's like, it's not a new format, man. This is the format we couldn't sustain before.
Well,
you know?
because you had a lot of people come in during the one take, the rise of the one take, so they are not used to this. But yeah, we've done this in a couple of channels. We've done it for TV and stuff. So like, I really like exercising this muscle. It's really fun, but it's just the finances don't really work out if we try to do it in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, and if there's a press launch in an exotic location, where, you know, otherwise footage gathering opportunities are limited, you know, then I can get a lot done with a phone. And writing does help to tell that story. And I'm glad that I just made that decision to do that before I went, because the in-car opportunity to shoot video was very limited, mainly because I spent most of the time in Morocco sharing a car with somebody. So, which is fine if you're writing. Who gives a shit if you're sharing a car with somebody? But if you're trying to make video, you don't just want some like random dude in the car.
Well, because you covered a lot of ground that I didn't really use in the video because it just didn't fit with the script. But you guys did like a slow, not rock crawl, but like a slow drive up a mountain road, and there was a transit on a dirt highway.
Yeah.
You did a lot of driving to get to the dunes. So,
yes.
like, what percentage of the driving was the dunes themselves, do you think?
Like, I got probably 2 10-minute hard runs on the dunes. That was it. There was a lot of fire road. There was a lot of highway transit. There was a couple of miles of that path, that sort of rocky trail up that mountain. Mm-hmm. And of all of those things, I drove half. I shared the car with someone. So I probably had a total of 3 or 4 hours of seat time, 20 minutes of which was on the deep sand. And so we had to use, we had to use all of it. I had 3 cameras on the car for all of the dune driving that I did. So we had to use a lot of it. And yeah, we probably could have made the video longer if we used more in-car. A lot of it would have gotten a little bit repetitive. But it worked out. I think the end length of the video was the right length, and the viewer learns everything they really need to know about the car that's important, and everything about that trip that was important. And why, it's so, the conclusion I think that I came to is important, which is that a car like that, which also applies to a F-150 or Bronco Raptor or a Safari vintage 911, is they're great if you are the kind of person who will use it. Having a Raptor that never goes off-road is actually worse than having a regular F-150.
Yeah.
And so that was the lesson of me having a Raptor, because I traded my Raptor for a minivan that was better at everything I used the Raptor for, except the twice that I went off-road. And so I, not only do I think that the Dakar is it's such a great product for its goals, but it's sad that many people won't use it for the thing that it's designed for. And it's, if I scrounged together the money and bought one, which I can't afford it right now, but if I found a way somehow, if I sold the M3 and put a down payment on a Dakar and drove it for a year and then maybe tried to sell it or something to get my money back, like I would, even me personally, would not do that in my own car. That's why the Dakar is like the best press launch vehicle ever, because in order to really get something out of it, you have to treat it like tomorrow doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And same thing with a Ford Raptor or any of those type of vehicles that are designed for going fast off road. You have to not care about the scratches. You have to not care about the squeaking from the brakes where because there's sand, jammed all in there. You bottom it out or smash the skid plate on something or hit the bump stop, and you have to be like, well, moving on.
And you also can't get the trail wrong, because you were in a good position there where they pre-ran they made this course, right? Mm-hmm. So they know that it's going to be really hard to really damage the vehicle.
Yeah.
But if you were just a person that went out to an off-road area, off-road park, and you didn't pre-run if you were dumb and you didn't pre-run the thing, and then you started going too quickly, you could go over a crest into a dip that is so big, like you bend a control arm or break something, and that is probably not going to be covered under warranty. So that's another risk with it. Like it's not that this thing, it's well built, and it can do a lot, but it is not impervious.
Yeah.
So that is a danger when you have these things.
Yeah, like Romain Dumas was out there with us, and he said, the coolest thing about this car, it's not necessarily what it can do, but that it's a Porsche, and so in their testing they didn't break it. Now they didn't like send it off huge jumps. They didn't intentionally take it beyond its design capabilities because it's not what Porsche does. But if you use it as designed, it should be pretty stout and pretty reliable. But in an off-road area, a big rock could come out of nowhere. A big hole could come out of nowhere. Deep sand that could come out of nowhere. Like, if you don't, we had guides that knew where to go. Mm-hmm. And they were pretty specific about, like, have fun, like, make the car move around. We're not going to go slow, but we know that this road and this trail that we're on is fine. And if you go more than a certain amount, out of our tracks, like, who knows?
Right. You could get stuck. You could just end up in really deep, soft sand.
Yeah.
And then they got to tow the thing out.
And they had like, Land Cruiser Prados, with spare tires and spare parts. And nobody broke anything while we were there. Nobody got any flats while we were there. And they were very impressed at how well the tires were holding up for 8 or 10 waves of this launch. But it's, you shouldn't bother with something like this if you're not going to use it. Because
so what if you, because it would be dumb to buy one of these if you live in LA. Because if all you're getting is the experience of accelerating them, like, you can get that from a Carrera, right? Like the regular one. Mm-hmm. So I think if you're a person that lives in a snowy climate, that's the question. Do you need this over a C4S with snow tires?
Nope.
No.
It doesn't.
Even with the ground clearance and the stuff that would protect that front fascia.
If you're Jeff Zwart, and Jeff Zwart is getting one, he sent me his spec. He's a rally driver, and he drives on dirt, snow-covered dirt a lot. If you spent half your year in deep snow in Canada or Finland or whatever, yeah, sure. It will be really good at that stuff. But if you live in the New York tri-state area and you want to drive a 911 year round and it snows 4 or 5 times a year and you're only driving on a truly snow-covered road for that one day until they plow it, and then it's just cold and wet, just get the regular one and put snow tires on it. You don't need all this.
Now, what about if the roads are terrible in your city? Because, like, one thing you said about your Safari is that it was a good city car because the roads here are bad, so you didn't have to worry about bottoming things out or potholes.
The Dakar is actually kind of similar to my car in that regard. The big bumps, the big dips, like in LA, we've got these swales for drainage. We don't have proper sewers. We just have like ditches cut into the road. And I took some heat on the last, I was talking about either the Dakar or my Safari on another show. And I said, yeah, you can just stay flat over. And I said this phrase, and I can't blame someone for misunderstanding what I mean, but I said, yeah, you just go flat over speed bumps. And the way this person took it was like, you call yourself an urbanist and you're talking about going flat over speed bumps? And I was like, whoa, I don't mean you go into some residential area, or a parking lot and literally go flat over speed bumps. In my city, the roads are crowned and there are these big dips, which poor choice of words, called speed bumps. And in the Safari, you don't, in a GT3.
In my car, you got to slow down at 10 miles an hour.
In a GT3, it's to slow down to 3 and take it at a weird angle, And
this is in the middle of a road, by the way. This is not always at a stoplight where you're stopped.
Yeah.
Like, this is, you're going 40, and then you have to slow down for these bumps, and then accelerate back to 40.
In the Safari, you can hit them at the speed limit. And the speed limit doesn't change because that thing is there. So, So that's what I meant. And if someone misunderstood, I'm not mad. I chose a bad point of words. I'm not saying you should go flat through a residential area. But the big bumps, the big dips, the Dakar soaks that shit up great. But it still has 19 and 20-inch wheels on it. And so the little bumps where it's little cracks in the road and it's not enough to really compress the shock. and the shocks are 50, or the springs are 50% softer than a GTS, but that's still basically like Carrera. It's not like it's WRX or Lincoln Town Car. It's still sports car springs, and so you could see in the video like it's still pretty stiff. It's not a trophy truck. You know, it's not gonna just float over that stuff. It's softer than a 911 GTS, but it's not softer than, you know, it's not the softest 911 you've ever driven. I mean, even a regular Carrera might even be softer. So it handles the big bumps really well with the extra travel, but the little bumps that aren't enough to compress the shock, it still feels quite sporty. And so it doesn't ride quite as soft as you think it would ride.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's not, because they do want it to feel, quote, like a sports car, like a Porsche. So it still has precise steering. You know, like I said in the video, it'll run 8 minutes, low 8 minutes around the Nürburgring.
That's so quick.
You know, on all-terrain tires.
It's fun to see that.
Yeah. No, I was like, do you have a video
Can't they
of
clip
that?
the curbs and shave a couple?
Well, that's what I said. I was like, you could straight line stuff for sure. And they're like, yes, this is not in the spirit of the Nürburgring.
Right,
Remember when Vaughn Gittin did it in a Raptor and cut every curb?
Yeah.
Like, it was like that.
How many are they making? Is it limited?
2,500.
Yeah, they'll sell every one of those.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So they're already sold.
They're either already sold, or the dealers that have allocations, they're putting tons of ADM on them. And I did call my dealer out of curiosity and say, hey, you know, if I wanted one of these, what is the deal? And he's like, it's kind of like Sport Classic, where, you know, it's just, there's going to be a ton of ADM on these.
Did you see the photo of, I think it was like Woodland Hills or something? It was basically
250
100%
over.
markup.
Yeah.
Like,
and they sold it. Yeah, they got it. I mean, there are people in this world that for whom money doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There just are. Yeah. And I don't like that that's part of our world. I was just at this past weekend. I went to the Concourse Club in Miami, which is a private racetrack country club in Miami. It's like that. It's like having this NASCAR track in the middle of the city. It's like that. There's like the Thermal Club in Monticello and all these other private tracks, but they're all kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Even Thermal Club is like 45 minutes or 40 minutes from Palm Springs. This place is right in the middle of Miami.
Whoa.
It's next to it's literally attached to the airport where the private jets fly in. And so, lovely place, lovely people. They were very nice. A membership is $375,000 to get in. Whoa. Plus like 35, 40 grand a year in annual.
Whoa.
And they have car condos with sort of lounge areas attached, but that are not zoned for living. And those are $10,000 to $12,000 a month. And you can park 8 to 10 cars in there. So for $10,000, $12,000 a month, you can't even use that as your vacation home.
Whoa.
Yeah. So like, and by the way, they've sold hundreds of memberships, and it's a nice place. And I'm not, and I don't know what it's like to have that kind of money to burn, and the sales guy who I was talking to was super cool. And he was like, think about when I was there, 24 Hours of Daytona was on. He's like, look at this race. He's like, 90% of the people in this race are paying to do this race. They're paying $100,000 to $500,000 to race for this weekend.
Yeah.
How many of those people would like to have access to a track, 300 days a year that's private and has a nice restaurant and has nice facilities and has a tuning shop and a detailing shop on site? And so...
Well, it kind of goes back to the Dakar thing, where any of these vehicles, McLaren Senna, Dakar, that are at such a high level of performance for a specific task that if you don't use it for that, and if all you do with a Senna is drive around town, show people that you have a Senna, and occasionally hit the gas and have it accelerate slightly faster than a 720, like you're missing the point. So I'm happy there are these places where the people that buy the 7-figure cars can take them and drive them, because that's what they should do with them.
The irony of a lot of these tracks, though, is that they are too small to really drive cars that are that fast, including the Thermal Club, including the Concourse Club. Both of those tracks are perfect if you have like a Cayman GT4 Club Sport, like 400 horsepower, 2,800 pounds. It's like the perfect size, shape track for that.
Otherwise, in a 720, the longest straight at Thermal, you're done in 3 seconds, right?
Yeah, you can get that car up to 120, 130 miles an hour, but you do a track day at Auto Club Speedway, you go 180 miles an hour. Or a track day at Watkins Glen or Road America, where you can go 150 plus 3 times a lap.
Yeah.
And again, it is what it is. If you want to build a track in the city, you're not going to have a mile long straight. And also, a lot of these people, as the sales guy told me, they get memberships to these tracks. They have no track experience. He said, and I believe this. He said, 25 years ago, if you wanted to start doing track stuff, you'd go to a school.
Yeah.
Skippy or one of those schools, right? Bondurant, you name it. Now, it's the HPDE model, where your first day, you're going to an HPDE. You don't even, the model of organization of HPDE is not even very good. How do I do a track day? Mm-hmm. Wait, I have to go to one of these third-party organizations. I don't just go to the track. Like, what does that mean? And then when you get to that HPDE, your instructors might be great, might not be great. They're only there to get some free track time. They're not on salary. They're not necessarily vetted.
Well, also, at Skippy or Bondurant, they start your day with classroom. Then they go exercises like threshold braking. And then, like S's, slalom. And like they work you up to, now you're ready for road course.
Right.
But if you show up with your brand new 992 Turbo and they just go, all right, you're in the novice group.
Right.
Go out and follow the other cars, and then maybe someone will ride with you, maybe not. Like,
and all you want is to not be in the novice group anymore. That's what this dude was. He was like, you do HPDE as a novice, like, just get me out of this green group. That's all people really want.
Why do they want that? Just because they don't
pride.
Want... Oh,
just pride.
Is enough.
Yeah, just pride. But at these, so they join these country clubs where the instructors are salaried, on staff, vetted pros who will work with you for a full day, just you and them, open track, no one else is on it. Maybe 1 or 2 other cars are on track, and there's data analysis. Live stream video back to the pits. The instructor's not even in the car with you. He's on comms. He's watching your camera and talking you during your lap, but he's not even in the car. So instructor's having the best day ever. He doesn't have to ride right seat ever again.
Right, it's a lot safer.
And so, and at the same time, these folks want to buy really, really fast cars just out of nowhere. I've never been on a track before, but I've got a 720, or I buy a cup car, because someone told them that was the thing to do.
Start with a cup car.
Yeah. And so anyway, the point being, there's people for whom the money is just, they've got so many zeros after that anyway, they just don't give a fuck.
Right. When I saw that Sport Classic, I was just shocked. It was, half it, $280,000 MSRP, and this is going for $500, and you can get a lot of the experience of that car in far cheaper vehicles.
Yeah, of course you can. From Porsche.
Yeah.
I mean, how much different is a Sport Classic from a rear-wheel drive stick GTS? Really, it's not that.
Very little.
It's the last 10% of the throttle.
And of course, it's the aesthetics, because they changed the body panels a little bit, and then the exclusivity. A lot of people, want to buy it to enjoy it,
and they see it as an investment. Maybe
right.
they could flip it again, or whatever. And that's fine. You buy whatever you want, buy whatever you can afford. But with the with the Dakar, it's if you're just gonna drive it on the street, it's less good than the regular one. Like, it's not better on the street than just a GTS. Like, it's just not. Even if you live in a city where the roads are kind of crappy, regular 911s ride really well. You get an S, you get a GTS without like PASM, and it'll ride just fine. You put snow tires on it, it'll drive great in the snow if the snow's not like crazy deep. Mm-hmm. So you don't need a Dakar because it snows 4 days a year. Just like you don't need a Raptor if you're going to drive on a fire road once or twice a year or go camping. You did that. You did the backcountry discovery route with me
F-150
a year ago in a regular ass
yeah.
F-150 hybrid. You did not need a Raptor to go 1,000 miles off road.
Yeah, and at times the Raptor is not as helpful as a regular truck because it's wider. Mm-hmm. I mean, do this. Like I've taken those trucks off road before, and on like Jeep trail, it won't fit. I mean, there are Jeep trails that are they're called Jeep trails, but like basically any SUV will fit on them. And granted, cars have grown, but like a Raptor is too wide for some of the legit trails that are out there.
So anyway, the Dakar is very, very cool, and it's and I understand why they make it. I'm going to write about this for Road and Track. You okay there? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to write about this for Road and Track. It didn't make it into the video. When I got there, I was certain that the Dakar was capitalizing on when Porsche saw the trend of people safarying their older cars.
Yeah.
But they claim, and they have photos to back it up, that they have Dakar mules going back to 2012. 991.1 mule. And so they said they have been working on this concept for like 10 years, developing it, and through 3 generations of car, .1, .2, and now 992.
Why did they decide to do it back in 2012?
It was a fun side project in the beginning, and then they kept bringing it around to their hot weather and cold weather testing, just kind of playing with it.
So someone built it almost like a passion project.
Yeah.
An engineering team.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, well, we can bring that too. We can bring that too. And then I wonder if the trend the trend had to have an effect.
I mean, I'm sure it had some kind of marketing effect.
To get it greenlit.
Yeah.
If they had the mule going back that far. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, car companies, it's so risky to build a brand new car or a new idea of a car and try to sell it and hope people buy it. So, of course, they're going to wait until the market lets them know, hey, we're down. Like, we're into this. Yeah.
I'm sure it had something to do with it. They weren't totally unaware that people were doing this.
Yeah.
But it's... but they had been working on it for a very long time, and so they said it was really when the marketing team and the anniversary of the rally cars, the 40th anniversary of the first rally car or whatever, 40th anniversary of the Rothmans car, the original one, and of 4-wheel drive and the technology that they have at their disposal in the 992. Able to optimize all the systems for rally style driving came together and allowed them to build this thing. But if you're going to use it, they were like, even Porsche was like, the guys in Dubai and Saudi will treat this thing like it's disposable, and they will have the best time ever. Yeah. And people who treat it like it's a collector's item will think it's dumb, because it's just... on the street, it's a less good 911. Still good, but less good. And on the trails, it's amazing. And if you don't actually take it on the trails, you really won't find it rewarding.
I mean, we know that driving on dirt is some of the most fun you can have in a vehicle, like period, full stop. So if you have one of these vehicles, find a way to take it to a safe dirt place. It could be Fire Road, it could be a rally school, whatever. There's got to be something near you where there's a place you could drive it on the dirt to experience that. Otherwise,
and put paint protection film on it or whatever, and it is, it is what it is. 992 brand new 911s, whether it's a Carrera or a GT3, they need to be used as regular cars. I've learned this from my other job at Westside. They fucking act up when they sit, because Porsche didn't design them to sit. They designed them to just be used as cars. And so if you use them as a car, they work. If you use them like they're supposed to be used, like, they work just fine. Like, nobody broke any Dakars on the launch. Romain Dumas didn't break the Dakar, beating the balls off it they did 500,000 kilometers in the mule. Like,
I think 10,000 was on dirt.
10,000 was on dirt, and a bunch was very hot weather, very cold weather. All those extreme conditions that they do, which I think is probably why the Dakar will be the better exotic rally car than the Lamborghini. It's just there's more development behind it. But like, they didn't break it, and if they didn't break it, like, you're probably not going to break it either.
Well, and to go back, when you say the cars fuck up when they sit, it's like the batteries drain, right?
Yeah, the lithium batteries aren't happy, and you get error codes. Like, it's just shit, just stuff that. And even Porsche will tell you, like, this car's meant to be driven, a couple 100 miles a month at a minimum. And if you don't, like, they They said one car, the lithium battery wasn't holding right, and they said you have to drive this car 60 miles a week minimum. And, for a car, that's not much, but for a collectible...
A 5th car or a 10th car.
Yeah. For a car, and in the case of this particular car, the client of mine doesn't live in Los Angeles. And so in order to make that happen, the client has to pay us to drive the car. Otherwise, the car gets fucked up.
Wow.
It's annoying.
Wow, yeah.
So anyway, please watch that video. We worked very hard on it. Please share it. We appreciate a nice email, but we appreciate a share even more. And if you have any Dakar questions, if you're in the live chat, get them in that Patreon feed before we get to that section of the show. What else do we have on the schedule today? Is that it?
Yeah. I mean, Doug, we can do Doug questions if you want.
We have a lot of leftovers from Doug. We had a lot. We went out to dinner with Doug and his investment team after the last show, which was very interesting.
Yeah, it was cool.
There was some folks there.
Interesting mix of people.
Yeah,
and I really liked Billy, the organizer's approach of musical chairsing everyone after a while, because I have social anxiety, so I'm in a group with the people I know.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people do that, and he recognized all right, everyone's having a conversation they've had before. So in the middle of dinner, he just you're moving, you're moving, you're moving, you're moving, and then he did it one more time. It's yeah, that's great. That's a great way to kind of foster conversation in a group that where not everyone knows each other.
Yeah, and I finally got to meet Philip Seraphim, who is the guy who bought and brought back the Myers-Manx brand with the new EV Myers-Manx designed by Freeman Thomas, and he said I can have a go, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, he's there's one down the street.
Yeah, he said there's one down the street with no body on it. He said there's a mule. Ooh. There's a mule right down the road, and I was like, can I drive that one? And he's like, I don't know about that. It might be a little, but yeah, that should be very cool. Congratulations to Doug for the Cars and Bids acquisition.
Yeah,
seems like they'll probably do pretty well with that.
I'm excited to see what becomes of it, or what comes of it rather. What are they planning to do? And 5 years from now, we'll look back and go, oh, that's where it's gone, or that's where it began, and here's where it is.
I anticipate there being other people besides just Doug making videos of the cars that go on Cars and Bids. But it does take a whole team. I mean, when you list a car, it's you need an auction specialist for every car, and there's only so many of those that one person can manage. I mean, I imagine one person could probably manage 10 to 20 auctions at a time, right?
Yeah, depending if they're up for a week.
Yeah.
And it depends on that person's intrinsic knowledge of the cars, how much research do they have to do to fill in all the blank stuff and the information.
Yeah.
Or not. But that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to manage.
And they probably will also for instance, right now you can't put a car older than 1981 on Cars and Bids. So why they came up with that cutoff, I don't know. But one thing that they did say was they intend to remove some of those limitations that are there, and staff up to make it so that you can do stuff like that. I mean, I wanted to list a car on Cars and Bids that I thought would be a good fit for it, but it was like a 1973 Beetle, and it just did. They were they couldn't do it. So, yeah. Let's get to that stuff. What have we here? Greg Scott, I'm just going to take the computer over here. Greg Scott says, listening to the Mike Guy episode, you guys were discussing the new Z and some of its shortcomings. What sort of improvements could Nissan make to the next model year to improved? I mean, its shortcomings, other than the fact that the suspension gave up, they could make it not do that. I put the Z in the same kind of packaging as a regular Mustang GT. It has to be good on the roads. It has to be usable as an everyday car by an everyday person. It's not a hardcore gearhead car. It has to be driven by people who only maybe like how it looks, who don't really give a shit about cars besides, oh, that's a nice looking coupe. I'm going to buy the automatic and just drive to work in it. And so it's the kind of thing where if you want to narrow the focus of the car in order to, make it good on track, You might have to change the suspension. You might have to change the wheels and tires. You might have to change the brakes. Nissan is going to do some of that on its own with a Nismo variant and with Nismo dealer-installed accessories, but it's a good place to start. 400 horsepower for $40,000, and you've got to finish it. And if you really want a car that will hold up to high temperature track day lapping.
And I think that's fine because we know that like the Mustang GT is a fine grand touring car, everyday car. But if you want to go to the track, you need to get performance pack 1 or 2. Like, and those affect the handling, they affect the feel, they affect the durability, and those are, if you're that person, you need to be willing to write the check to buy that upgraded car that's meant for you. Because I think it's easy to criticize a car that is not meant for a specific purpose, and I don't think it's really fair to it. Like they're trying, like you said, they're trying to sell hundreds of thousands of those to lots of people, but 10% of those people are going to care about the turn-in feel, and then 5% of them are going to go to the track. So it's either up to the aftermarket for you to make the car what you want, or for them to roll out special editions, which is what every car company does. But if the base car has a good foundation and it's a good jumping off point, then great.
Yeah. Andrew N. says, what is the most American car built by a non-American manufacturer? I don't know where every car is built, but I can say with confidence that lots of BMW SUVs are built in South Carolina. The X5 and X6 are built in what do you call it? What's the name of where's Spartanburg, yeah. South Carolina. Mercedes builds SUVs, I think also in South Carolina.
Aren't a lot of Fords assembled in Mexico?
Yeah, but that's the other way. That's an American car maker making cars not in America.
What is the most
This is American car built by a non-American. Hondas and Acuras proudly built in Ohio.
Yeah, NSX was built in Ohio.
And also the Accord is built in Ohio. Texas, there's Toyotas in Texas. I mean, there's a lot of,
Well, the Tundra, I mean, they built a whole new plant for the new Tundra. Yeah. And it's all assembled outside, like, I don't know, it's like an hour outside of Austin.
Yeah. So that's, there's a bunch. I mean, we got Germans, we got Japanese. Let's see. Andrew N. Allegedly, Genesis will be building the Genesis X convertible as a low-volume halo car for $200,000 to $300,000. Seems like an odd decision based on how big luxury coupes are selling and low-volume halo cars limit exposure. Is this a mistake? What should they build instead? I think that's a really cool-looking car.
It's really good-looking.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Well, and something we talked about, Doug, that aligns with this is that Hyundai and Genesis, like, if you go back more than 5 years, the cars were not great. And then before that, they didn't even exist. The brand was like fairly new. So I think someone asked us like why that's not included in the sort of vintage luxury coupe like world. It's like, well, they don't have this 50-year, 100-year tradition like Mercedes. They don't even have a 20-year tradition. Yeah. So I think this is a way for them. They've done a really good job of making good-looking, luxurious cars that cost less than some of their competition, but they need something that really says, no, we are in this different league. Like, we are up here with the rest of you guys.
Yeah, like, when Toyota launched Lexus, the LS400 wasn't just better than all the Toyotas. It was better than the S-Class, and it was better than the Audi, and it was better than the BMW 7 Series. Like, objectively better. It wasn't just, like, better for the money. It was also just better. My dad bought a Lexus LS400 when it was new, and it was shocking what that car felt and drove like, and the refinement of it. It was, if you get in a 1991 LS400 versus a 1991 BMW 7 Series and a 1991 Mercedes, the difference is comedy. I mean, it's crazy how much nicer that car was from a materials and installation standpoint. It was faster. It had more power. And so Genesis has never really done that. They've made some very nice cars. The G90 is nice. The GV60 and GV80 or whatever are nice, but they're not mind-blowing products that just smash it out of the park and embarrass the rest of the competition. If Genesis builds this thing and it's $250,000, but it is objectively much nicer than an S-Class convertible and on the level of a Bentley GT, people will be like, wow, this is what they can do.
Right.
And I don't know. I don't see any reason not to build that. I mean, here in California, big luxury convertibles are still selling. Bentley GTCs and Rolls-Royce Dawns and stuff like that is around. So they've already got, luxury SUVs. They've already got sedans. It would be nice if they built a cool sports car. They don't have one at the moment.
Well, and also if they do a limited run or a small run, I think it's worth it to a brand to do those kinds of things. Almost like the Dakar, we're always on the sports car side of thing or the performance side of things, but a brand needs something that they need a flag they can plant, and they might not sell 100,000 of them, but if they don't need to, if they still find another benefit, then I think it's cool.
Richard James wrote a very long question, but wants a fun car under 45,000 that has a DCT or a very good automatic because he has arthritis and can't drive a manual. He mentions the only good ones he's seen are the Hyundai Elantra N and Kona N and the Golf R. Anything else
Those
with
are
a good DCT? I mean, it's a little out of your price range, but the Audi S3 is a nicer Golf R. If you're willing to go used, you can go RS3 or TTRS as well. The BMW 228i that we drove, the 228 or 230 M Sport. How much was that thing, Zach? 46?
The red one?
Yeah. Is it in the 40s?
I think it was like 38 or 41. Yeah, that was a really nice
the 228, car. It was a torque converter auto, but it was very, very responsive and fun.
I mean, anything with a ZF 8-speed now is pretty good for enthusiasts.
Yeah, I mean, even like the Mustangs with the 10 speeds, they're pretty good.
Yeah. And even the BRZ auto, which is a 6-speed.
Yeah. Actually, the paddles are good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the paddles are good on
You got a lot of good options out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't. The CVTs you don't want for sure,
want a CVT.
But anything with a ZF for sure will be pretty decent.
ZF or the Ford 10-speed.
Yeah. Sarong Singh, what is objectively the worst car you've ever driven that you'd still consider owning? The worst car you've ever driven that you'd still consider owning. Worst car I've ever driven that I'd still consider owning.
Oh, well, the Tercel from All Cars Go to Heaven 1. Oh. I mean, I would consider, because it's just really comfortable and reliable as anything. I mean, there's a lot of old cars, of course.
Yeah, like I've driven a couple like muscle cars that were pretty terrible, but kind of charming in their own sort of way.
Anything from the 30s gets by entirely on charm and noise. But they are not comfortable, safe, anything.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if it was running good, maybe that 1902 Packard we did the veteran run in, because I'd like if it was a terrible car that got you an entry into a cool event like that. There's a trend of buying vintage cars of a variety of different vintage cars in order to gain entry into certain types of events like the Mille Miglia, the Copper State 1000, what have you. The veteran run thing is pretty fun. And in fact, we're going back.
Yeah.
And Donald Osborne has a different Audrain car for us to drive. We're not going to take the Packard again, but we will be racing 120-year-old cars again. But they've also moved it to May.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so it was in March originally, so it was on Donald's birthday, but everyone was freezing and I think complained.
Yeah, the weather was terrible.
It was so cold.
It was so cold.
So it'll be in May this year.
Should we bring a horse as a backup?
If you want to come out, it's really funny. It's fun to watch. Come out to Newport, Rhode Island to see the Audrain veteran run. That's about the worst car I've ever driven that I would still consider owning. Or the Model T Speedster that I drove for Road and Track. Bothwell's Model T Speedster. That was terrible and very fun. Let's see. Amatore 911. What is the most fair way for manufacturers to sell these low supply, high demand enthusiast cars like the Civic Type R and the GR Corolla? Should it be a no reserve auction and let the market decide? Should it be a lottery system? Should there be an application process to see brand loyalty?
I think it should be first come, first serve. Like, you call the dealership. I call them before you. The car is there. It's like if we go to a grocery store, if I grab the last carton of eggs just because I got there before you, like, you shouldn't go, you should write a letter to the grocery store and tell them how, that you're an enthusiast of eggs. What are you going to do with the eggs?
Yeah.
Are you going to cook the eggs and make an omelet? Like, I think I'm going to do a lot more with these eggs than you are. No, it should be first come, first serve, and get rid of the loyalty and get rid of the ADM.
I agree. If there was an open and honest way to do first come, first serve, and you have to display the list on the board. So if you walk in, you can see there are 10 people on the list, and if I put my name down, I'm number 11. So it's a transparency of the list. So you're not going to tell Zach he's third on the list, but then when that third car comes in and someone goes, hey, I'll give you 25 over for that car, now I'm third on the list.
Right.
Transparency. Otherwise, no reserve auction. I mean, if what you want is ADM, if that's the move, if it's biggest dollar gets it, then let it fly at no reserve
from the beginning.
Well, no reserve, or the reserve is the MSRP. Starting auction at MSRP for a week. We'll let it fly at the reserve MSRP. I mean, that's more fair than putting $250 over on the window and then haggling with everybody.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, first come, first serve.
Let's see. Dave from Minnesota. Thoughts on the Buick Regal Tour X wagon?
That is an underrated wagon.
Have you driven one?
We filmed one for Proving Grounds.
Really?
And I looked at it.
Never driven one. Never even been around one.
It is a very comfortable, fairly quick wagon. The profile, if you took the badge off and put Jaguar on the front, it would work. Like, It's a really good-looking estate. Yeah. And no one cares about it because it's a Buick.
Yeah. Brad Brownell had one and really liked it, I think.
Yeah. We liked it. And the other hosts on the show liked that car.
I have no thoughts on it, but if Zach has experience, we will go with him. Let's see. Adrian Aguero from Costa Rica. I want to go with my friends for an extended weekend getaway for my birthday. Is there a driving experience in particular that you would suggest for a small group of foreign enthusiasts? Now, I wonder if he means like a driving school kind of experience. If so, like Rally Ready or Dirtfish would be fun. Or if you mean a road trip. If it's a road trip, I would say that Northern California, wineries, food, oysters, mountain roads, that kind of stuff is great.
I mean, I've never talked to someone that drove PCH and regretted it. You regret the fifth time. But I think there's a question of money here. So if you're going to do it, and you can do it a lot of different ways. The cheap version is rent a car with friends and do a trip like PCH.
Yeah.
Like some iconic place in the United States that is, the roads are fun, the food is good, the sites are great. If you have a little more money, you could do a driving school. And then if you have a lot of money, you could do one of those road rallies where you can also rent the Corvette or the Ferrari or the Exotic and then go on the 2-3 day trip, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you could do something like the coastal, like the Driving While Awesome rallies. Mm-hmm. Those are very affordable. They don't charge a lot of money to enter the rally. You book your own hotel, and you can either stay at a big budget hotel or a little budget hotel. And they're really nice people, and they put on a great event. If you got a bunch of money, not going to lie, it's expensive, but the road and track events that we do, experiences.roadandtrack.com, you can enter one of those. You can rent a car locally for that if you're coming from out of town. Or, I mean, you could go to Vegas and do dream racing. You could do dream racing one day and the Vegas off-roading thing another day, and then you could go to Dig This, the construction fantasy camp,
cool, yeah.
the third day. Vegas is corny, but all of those things are right there. So yeah, all good suggestions. Pretty road trip in a rental car. That's probably your cheapest one. Vegas for 3 days with 3 different car things, one each day. That's probably next. Pricey road rally or full on driving school, like a rally school or a racing school, that's up there. But 3 good options there, Adrian.
The NASCAR questions are that tab.
Oh, we have NASCAR questions? Oh, let's make sure. Oh, shit. Where did I do?
Tab.
Here we go. Oh, I didn't realize we had NASCAR questions. I'm sorry. We'll do these next. Lucas says, there's a discussion happening in left media, meaning lefty media, not left behind media, around banning traffic stops. As someone who is pro-reform, defund the police, sympathetic, but also someone who drives like a dickbag from time to time, and knowing that Hellcats exist, I think this is a horrible idea. Your thoughts?
So I looked this up because I knew there was more to this question. And what I think he's speaking about is something they call like pretextual traffic stops. Mm-hmm. And there are some cities that have already banned this. And what that is pulling someone over for a broken taillight, mm-hmm. pulling someone over for like really minute things that mm-hmm. usually, I think we're being, one, occupying a lot of police officers' time, and then 2, in a lot of communities being used to target minorities, and sure. then, that was going
and
south
oftentimes are somewhat tangentially related to this person's finances and ability to maintain their car in a way that, we have deemed as the minimum standard.
Right. Like if someone's poor and their taillight's out, now you write them a ticket for that. Like, well, now can they afford the taillight, or they have to pay the ticket?
Yeah.
Like, it can be this terrible cycle. So
yeah,
I
and
think that's the nuance of this.
It could escalate to a situation where there's an unfortunate altercation with police where someone could lose their life,
yep.
or go to jail,
yep.
For something that's unrelated to the fact that their fucking taillight is broken. Mm-hmm. I just finished that book, Policing the Open Road, which talks about the evolution of the police stop. And the evolution of the police stop goes back to prohibition. And seeing someone that is a bootlegger driving the other way, and you want a reason to stop them because you think they're running booze, but you don't actually have any proof that there's booze in the car. What is your car a private space, or is your car a public space because you're on a public road? And the legal arguments for both sides of that. If you're really interested in this, I think that's a good book to read. I mean, it's a dense, like textbook-like book, but it actually gives a pretty down the middle perspective on police stops and why, not necessarily why they should continue to exist or should not continue to exist, but why they have how they have gotten to where we are today. I think it would, if you look to places, other countries, for instance, Dubai, UAE is a good example. There are no police stops in Dubai. The police don't pull you over. But that doesn't mean there's no speed enforcement. There's cameras everywhere.
Everywhere.
And if you do something wrong, either a ticket will be mailed to you electronically or physically, or the police, or if you do a crime, the police will show up at your house. They'll just follow you on the cameras back to your house, and then they'll just meet you there. And so, I do believe in defunding the police. I don't think police shouldn't exist at all, but I think that a system that we have now where the police keep killing people shouldn't be. I don't think the solution to that is more funds and more equipment.
Right. And I think that the term defund was like when they started using global warming instead of climate change.
Right.
And that was like, and that all the people that said
right.
global warming at first, like, oh,
right.
fuck.
I think reallocating funds to social services
right.
and neighborhood based communities and stuff like that, as opposed to the I think instead of defund the police, let's say demilitarize the police. That's a better word, I think, that
I agree.
that I believe in. And I'm not, although I'm anti-surveillance in a lot of ways, I understand that moving to a camera or digital-based speed enforcement system, like many other countries use, not just the UAE. In Holland, I got a ticket that was a camera ticket.
They have them in France, they have them in UK.
They have them in other countries, and it's people complain about those too. But as long as they're not being run by for-profit private companies like the Red Flex scandal here in America, where they were literally scamming people with the cameras. If it's actually government and accountable and all that, I'm not hugely against that, as opposed to judgment-based or pretextual police stops. And yeah, you know, and I am someone who might drive like a dickbag from time to time, but I typically do that out in the middle of nowhere where nobody is around at a time when the minimum number of people are around.
Well, I also think the pretextual thing is not saying people can speed and do whatever the fuck they want.
Sure.
I think that's what the nuance is here. This is, you're driving down the street at the speed limit and your taillight is broken, and the cop uses that to pull you over and occupies the police officer's time, possibly, you know, puts this person in a situation where they can't pay the ticket, the car gets impounded, now they can't go to work. Like, whatever the knock-on effects are, I mean, this is all hypothetical, but I just want to tell our listener, that's what the goal is. This is not lawlessness.
Yeah. We're not saying there shouldn't be speed limits and there shouldn't be any kind of enforcement at all. But I definitely believe in eliminating pretextual stops, and I definitely think that there is a better system for speed enforcement on our highways than physical pullovers. Brad asked about mufflers on the NASCAR race. We've already covered that one earlier in the show. Gunnar Ray bought a watch and has a watch question. I've taken delivery of a Xeric NASA Voyager meteorite. Xeric is Xeric, and they make very cool watches with kind of funky complications for a reasonable amount of money. They, at first glance, look like they should be a lot more expensive than they are. On a deeper glance, you realize why they aren't super expensive, because a lot of times when you have a very complicated watch with a sort of complicated time display, it's based on another movement or whatever. There's always a reason a watch costs what it costs. But it apparently, according to Gunnar, has a 1 kilometer water resistance rating.
Oh, good.
And he wants to know how he can test that. You don't need to go on a submarine. You could go to a high-end watch repair place, and they have a machine that can test your water resistance without any water. It's like a barometric, like a pressure chamber.
I saw it in the footage you had from Bob's Watches once. Yes. This very small thing, and it had a plunger on it, and it just tested. Yeah,
and cool. It tested. So you could go test that yourself by going to a high-end watch repair place and ask them to test your water resistance, and they'll give you a readout, and they'll say your watch went to 800 feet or whatever.
Or get a lot of fishing line and measure it out, and then go out
dump that shit in the ocean. Walker Novak wants to know that we are not the biggest NASCAR fans ever, but what kind of changes to the sport would we like to see? That's a tough one.
I'm not sure how. So I was a big anti-NASCAR person for a long time, because I was just like, oh, it's only turning left and all this stuff. And then working, and I've told this story, so I'll make it short. Working with Parker Kligerman, who competes in ARCA and NASCAR, and I think one of the other Cup series, we would sit, for a week in Pahrump, or not in Pahrump, Chuckwalla, just filming this show. And he explained to me the challenges they have as drivers, not just the speed, but the proximity, how the air is working around the cars, how getting too close to someone on the left can make a low pressure zone on the right, or like all this weird stuff. And then managing all of that. And that made me appreciate it more. But I think what's hard is capturing that and displaying it to people. So I think but like reducing the amount of the wide overhead shot that just shows the whole group of cars. Like, you need that, but the addition lately of onboard cameras, not just behind the driver.
That 360 camera,
the 360
cool.
camera,
Yeah.
The stuff, like the more cameras they can put on the cars, as Drive to Survive has shown, the more you can put the viewer in the moment and help them understand how fast they're going, how close they are to other cars. Like, it raises the excitement level, and that, I think, would help the viewer understand what the drivers are doing, and that they are not, as so many of us have said, simply turning left. Like, that driving is hard and crazy.
Yeah, it is. And I've done the NASCAR experience in Vegas, and it is hard. And they have you work your way up to the higher speeds, and I was pretty good at it compared to, their average tourists. So they let me go a little quicker than the novices get to go. And when you start going, 160 plus around the track, that track shrinks pretty quick. And you start feeling, the slicks really, when a track is banked that much and a slick still has to do work, You're like, whoa, this is
It's like 30 degrees, right?
Yeah, it's
I've
big.
stood there.
It's a big banking. Yeah. And so for me, the biggest thing that they could do, they've already done. They've updated the cars to be more like the V8 supercars that you have in Australia. They look a little more like the regular cars. They have real lights. They've got wheels that are more like, they have different gearboxes, and they've brought the cars to the modern era, or much more of the modern era anyway. And so that helps me. I find the road courses to be interesting.
Yeah.
I know that's not what their core audience goes for. I think stuff like this that they're doing at the Coliseum, unconventional tracks. I'd love to see a street circuit. I'd love to see they set up that Long Beach course. Mm-hmm. Let's have a fucking NASCAR race at Long Beach, on the streets. That could be real cool.
I think they're adding more road courses this season because there's a lot of the market that, or a lot of car enthusiasts that want to see that.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know how many people that, arrive to watch the road course ones, if they then will go watch the ovals. Like, will they have that trickle down effect of just now they're fans of the driver, they want to see how they do or not?
Road courses are even more in the middle of nowhere than ovals.
But I mean, like if you tune in. Like, if you're willing to tune in
TV,
for them at Watkins, are you going to watch them at Daytona? I don't know.
And if they really can get, they have their own version of a Drive to Survive, right? It's on like USA or something, right? What's it called?
Oh man, I
can't remember. I can't remember, but that series, has made me a lot more interested in Formula One for sure, because I care more about the storytelling than I do about the race, and so. There may be other people like me. I don't know if there are. Maybe not. Maybe people just care about the race and they don't care about the story, and the drivers are just robots. But to me, the story is more interesting than the race itself. The race is sort of the result of the story. It's like we saw the story, and now let's see how these efforts play out during the race. So if all you see is the car going around in a circle for one day, and you don't know about what has led up to them getting there and being there, especially if you're not in the top three.
I think most people care about the drivers. I think what's good about Drive to Survive is that it's like a compressed course. It's like you went to summer school and now you know everything about these drivers and where they've come from. Whereas before, if you were just watching NASCAR or another racing series, you'd have to watch 5 years of racing, or you have to read the articles and find information about these, and then you go, well, now Dale's my guy, or now Parker's my person, or whatever. Mm-hmm. It just takes longer. And now you can watch one season of a show, you learn about all the people, you go, oh, I like this character, I like this driver, and now you're a fan of that person. So it just speeds that process up. Yeah.
Two more. Sean Gallagher wants a $15,000 daily driver that will be a sensory deprivation chamber for the drive home after a long day at work. Not super concerned about running costs, but nothing absurd like Tavares would buy. Needs all-wheel drive.
Any Lexus product?
Yeah, the thing about, Lexus,
$15,000.
the LS, then I don't know if you're going to get all-wheel drive for the one that's $15,000. You could get a Lexus ES 350 with all-wheel drive for $15,000.
Yeah.
That whatever the nicest, newest one is, that'll get you.
That is definitely a chamber. You won't hear anything.
Yeah, Lexus. I would say Lexus ES is where you probably want to start there. Last one. From a UK fan, Simon Kilby, listening to your recent list of upcoming legal to import cars, how come no mention was made to the TVR Tuscan from 1998? Well, no mention was made because we didn't make that list. We were reading another website's list. I agree that the Tuscan is probably a good car to import, although there's nobody in America that would have any idea how to work on a Tuscan.
And I've heard they need a lot of attention.
Yeah, there is a guy in California who, I don't know what he has done. It's shady, but he has multiple TVRs. And I've seen him around at events. He's got a Cigaris. I think he has a Tuscan. I think he has either a Griffith or a Cerbera also. And I love seeing a TVR around. I have that might be one of the worst cars ever that I might want to own. I don't know. But they're really weird. They're bizarre cars. I have good luck finding anybody in America that has ever worked on one.
Yeah.
I've never even heard of somebody working on one. But I don't know why. Was it Autoblog or something left it off their list? But yeah, 1998.
Yeah, good point.
Might want to import a TVR Tuscan. All right. Well, that's our show for the day. Sunday, the 5th, is going to be the Clash at the Coliseum. If you go to the show or our show description here, the link, the show notes, we'll put a link to grab tickets. Zach and I will be here. I think we're going to be sitting over there at the end underneath the what do you call that thing? The aqueduct looking thing where the Cypress Hill stage is.
Yep.
That's where we were last year. We'll probably be there again. It's a really, really cool experience, and the tickets aren't expensive. Unlike a football game, like every seat is awesome. We're at the very top of the stadium right now, and it's probably better actually to be up higher. I mean, if you get what you think are the crappiest tickets in the house, you'll probably have an amazing view.
Yeah, you will.
Of the whole race. You can see the entire track from any seat in the whole place. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on outside the stadium itself, around the circumference of the property. It's a really cool experience, especially if you've never been to a NASCAR race or thought about going to a NASCAR race, and you're in LA. Like, this one's right here. It's just it's not a big deal to get to, and it's going to be very fun. So hit the link in the show notes, grab yourself some tickets, and if you see us at the race on Sunday, please flag us down and say hello. And thanks for listening. And is that it? Anything else? All right. We will see you guys. We'll be back tomorrow for the live people. Johnny Lieberman, 5 p.m. Pacific. Be yapping it up about something. Don't even know.
Bring your earplugs.
We were gonna have Bucky LASIK on this week, but we had to bump it to like 2 weeks from now. He's traveling next week, but the week after that, Bucky will come in. He's been doing a lot of cool stuff with Subaru.
Cool.
And that'll be fun. So thanks to you guys all for listening. Thanks to NASCAR for having us out here today and getting us set up with some passes for Sunday. Very cool stuff. And we'll see you guys later. Bye.